Welcome to Space Matrix. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates. International trade usually runs quietly, shaped by rules and negotiations. But President Donald Trump disrupted that calm with a bold announcement: new U.S. tariffs on Indian goods. This wasn't a minor tweak. It was a dramatic escalation, pulling India into a trade conflict that had mostly centered on China. The move sent shockwaves from Mumbai's markets to New York's boardrooms, signaling that America's trade disputes were expanding. Trump's America First strategy argued that the U.S. was being treated unfairly, and these tariffs were meant to correct that imbalance. The message was clear: the old rules of trade were being rewritten, and the U.S. intended to lead the rewrite. For years, the U.S. and India had grown closer, sharing democratic values and economic ties. Now, that progress was at risk. Billions in trade and a key strategic partnership hung in the balance. Was the U.S. willing to jeopardize its relationship with the world's largest democracy over tariffs? The timing was tense. Global markets were already shaky, and this move added more uncertainty. No country, not even a friendly one, was immune from America's new, aggressive trade approach. The world watched, waiting for India's response. The stage was set for a new era of tension in global economics. A tariff is a tax on imported goods, making them more expensive for buyers in the U.S. The Trump administration justified tariffs on India by claiming India restricted American access to its markets and imposed high tariffs on U.S. goods. The U.S. saw this as unfair and used tariffs as leverage, hoping to pressure India into opening its markets. Trump's approach was about reciprocity. If India taxed American products, the U.S. would do the same. Tariffs became both an economic and political tool, signaling strength and fulfilling campaign promises. Critics argued tariffs are blunt instruments. They can protect some industries, but also raise prices for consumers and hurt businesses relying on imports. The administration believed the benefits outweighed the risks, betting that economic pressure would force change. But the gamble risked unintended consequences for both economies. Tariffs are always a trade-off, with winners and losers on both sides. The U.S. hoped this pressure would rebalance global trade in its favor. For Indian exporters, the tariffs were a sudden storm. Many businesses, from small workshops to large factories, depended on the American market. Now their goods, like jewelry and leather, became pricier for U.S. buyers, threatening jobs and profits. Small and medium enterprises, already operating on thin margins, faced tough choices: raise prices and risk losing customers, or absorb losses. The uncertainty created anxiety across India's export sector. American companies relying on Indian components also felt the pinch, as costs rose and supply chains were disrupted. The impact wasn't one-sided. Both Indian exporters and their U.S. partners suffered. Some Indian businesses scrambled to find new markets or cut costs, but these fixes weren't easy. The tariffs forced Indian exporters to rethink their future in a more challenging global landscape. The ripple effects of this trade war were felt on both sides of the ocean. While in Washington, officials defended the tariffs as a necessary response to India's trade barriers, hoping to force a better deal. They projected confidence that this tough stance would benefit American workers. In New Delhi, the reaction was disappointment and concern. Indian leaders called the move unfortunate and rejected the U.S. justification, insisting on protecting their own industries. Both sides entered tense negotiations, but key issues like access for U.S. dairy and medical devices remained unresolved. Domestic politics made compromise difficult. Neither side wanted to appear weak. Eventually, India retaliated with its own tariffs on American goods, targeting politically sensitive products like almonds and apples. The dispute escalated, turning a strategic partnership into an economic standoff. Each government dug in, hoping the other would blink first. The once warming relationship was now defined by confrontation. The U.S.-India trade dispute sent shockwaves through an already fragile global trading system. Other countries watched nervously, fearing tariffs were becoming the new normal. The conflict undermined the authority of the World Trade Organization, as the U.S. bypassed established rules. If major powers ignored the system, global trade could unravel, leaving smaller economies vulnerable. Meanwhile, China saw an opportunity to strengthen its own ties in the region, shifting the geopolitical balance. The dispute risked pushing India closer to other powers, weakening U.S. alliances. Multinational companies scrambled to adjust, moving supply chains to avoid tariffs, a costly process known as decoupling. The era of seamless global integration was under threat. Trade wars made the world more fragmented and less predictable. The consequences extended far beyond Washington and New Delhi. Lost in the debate was the impact on American consumers. Tariffs are taxes, and the cost is passed down to shoppers, raising prices on everyday goods like clothing and jewelry. Low-income families felt the pain most, as these items made up a bigger share of their budgets. The policy, meant to protect American jobs, acted as a regressive tax. Many goods from India aren't made in the US anymore, so consumers had few alternatives. Higher prices didn't guarantee more American jobs, just more expensive shopping. The real cost of tariffs was paid at the checkout counter. Trade policy often helps one group while hurting another. The tariffs on Indian goods were a clear example, intended to send a message abroad, but hitting Americans at home. The true price of a trade war is measured in everyday expenses. The US-India trade dispute was more than a clash over numbers. It was a test of global relationships. For Americans, it meant higher prices and uncertainty for businesses. For India, it threatened growth and forced a rethink of its economic strategy. Both countries faced tough choices about sovereignty, partnership, and prosperity. The conflict was a warning for the world. Would global trade be ruled by cooperation or chaos? The trend toward tariffs and trade wars made the future more volatile for everyone. Shared challenges like poverty and climate change became harder to tackle in a divided world. The story showed how economic decisions in one country ripple worldwide. The stakes weren't just about trade. They were about the kind of world we want to build. In the end, the choice is between walls and conflict, or bridges and shared prosperity.